I showed up to surprise my son at Caldwell Properties on a Tuesday morning. I thought I'd find him learning the business, proving his MBA meant something. Instead, I watched him carry dry cleaning through a marble lobby, while his father-in-law told a client, "Don't mind him. That's just my daughter's little charity project." My son's face went red. His hands shook. He never saw me standing there. But I saw everything, and Preston Caldwell had no idea that the ground beneath his entire empire belonged to me. Welcome to Family Revenge Stories, and thank you for spending your time with me today. Before we go any further, tell me in the comments where you are watching from and how old you are right now. I am genuinely curious who is walking through these stories with me. And when you finish this story, rate it from 1 to 10. Your support truly helps me create even better stories for you. Also, please understand this story contains some fictionalized elements added for narrative and learning purposes. Any resemblance to actual names or settings is purely coincidental. But the message I am sharing with you is meant to matter. That Tuesday started the way every morning had started for the past 40 years. Early, 5:30. Sky still purple over East Atlanta. Birds just beginning their noise in the magnolia tree outside my bedroom window. 40 years of electrical work does that to a man. Trains your body to wake before the world needs you. Even retirement could not break the habit. I stood at the kitchen stove in my bungalow on Flat Shoals Avenue. Same house I bought in 1992. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a front porch that needed repainting every few years. Nothing fancy. The kind of place people drive past without a second look. That was fine by me. Coffee was already brewed. Cast iron pan heating up, the one Diane bought at a yard sale 30 years ago. I cracked 3 eggs into it. The sizzle filled the kitchen, mixed with the smell of turkey bacon in the second skillet. Nathan's favorite. I bought the thick cut from the butcher on Moreland Avenue yesterday because today mattered. His first day at Caldwell Properties. Working for his father-in-law. That last part sat in my chest like a stone I could not swallow. On the shelf above the kitchen window sat a photo of Diane, my wife, Nathan's mother. Gone 15 years now. Lymphoma took her fast. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Some mornings I still turned to tell her something before remembering the chair beside me was empty. Today felt like one of those mornings. I heard Nathan's footsteps on the stairs. He appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my first truck. Tailored sharp. Gift from Vanessa. His tie was navy silk. His shoes polished so bright they caught the overhead light. My son looked like he belonged in a boardroom. Not in this kitchen with its chipped linoleum and cabinets I installed myself back in 2003. Morning, Dad. His voice carried that nervous energy I recognized from every first day of his life. First day of kindergarten. College orientation. His wedding. Morning. Coffee is fresh. No thanks. Already wired enough. He tugged his tie, adjusted it, tugged it again. I slid eggs and bacon onto a plate, set it at his usual spot. Same chair he had been sitting in since he was 9 years old. Since we moved into this house after Diane said the apartment on Memorial Drive was too small for a growing boy. Eat. Cannot start working for the Caldwells on an empty stomach. He sat down, fidgeted with his cuffs. Vanessa says her dad is really excited to have me on the team. Real opportunity to learn commercial real estate from the inside. That is good. I poured my coffee, leaned against the counter the way I always did. Working for family can be complicated, though. Nathan looked up from his plate. What do you mean? Just means you might have to work twice as hard. Prove you earned your spot on your own merit. Not because you married the boss's daughter. I know, Dad. I am ready for that. He said it firm, but I saw the doubt flicker behind his eyes. My son had always been brilliant. MBA from Emory, with honors, top 5% of his class. But he carried this weight, like he was always waiting for someone to tell him he did not belong. That the kid from East Atlanta got lucky. That the scholarship boy married above his station. You earned this, I said. Do not let anyone, family or not, tell you different. He nodded, went back to his eggs. Your mother would have been proud, I said quietly, seeing you in that suit. Starting your career. His fork stopped moving. I wish she could have seen the wedding. Today. All of it. She did. She does. I tapped my chest. Right here. Sees everything. We ate in comfortable silence after that. Just the sound of forks on plates and the heater kicking on against the April morning chill. After Diane passed, when Nathan was 17, it had been just us. Me working double shifts, running my own electrical crew 6 days a week to keep him in good schools. Him studying until midnight, determined to make something of himself, to prove that all those years of sacrifice meant something. Now here we were. When he stood to leave, I walked him to the front door. He grabbed his briefcase, leather, expensive, gift from the Caldwells, and turned back. Thanks, Dad. For everything. For breakfast. For working yourself into the ground to put me through school. For never once making me feel like I owed you something. I gripped his shoulder. That is what fathers do. Now get out of here before Preston thinks his new hire cannot tell time. Nathan grinned. For a moment the nervousness disappeared, and I saw my boy. The one who used to run through this house laughing, tracking mud on Diane's clean floors. Then he was out the door, walking to his Honda Accord in the driveway. Practical car. He insisted on buying it himself, even after marrying into the Caldwell money. That was my son. I stood on the porch watching him back out. April morning in Atlanta, warm already. Dogwoods blooming white along the street. Nathan waved as he pulled away. Then, he was gone. I should have gone inside. I had nothing urgent. Retirement meant my mornings were my own. Read the paper, maybe call Ray. Water the tomatoes out back. But I could not move. I stood there with my coffee mug, staring at the empty driveway, and felt something heavy settle behind my ribs. Something was not right. 40 years of electrical work teaches you things about systems, about currents running where they should not, about the hum a wire makes right before it fails. You learn to feel it. A wrongness in the air. A weight. I was feeling it now, and I had learned a long time ago never to ignore that feeling. I tried to shake it off. Went inside, washed the dishes, wiped down the counters, put on my reading glasses, and opened the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on the kitchen table. Read the same paragraph about brave spring training 4 times without absorbing a single word. By 10:30, my coffee had gone cold, and that weight behind my ribs had grown into something I could not ignore. I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. He is 32 years old, I told myself. Married. Starting his career. Does not need his old man hovering like he is in middle school. I looked at Diane's photo above the window. She smiled back at me the way she always did. Patient. Knowing. What do you think, honey? Am I being foolish? But I could almost hear her voice. The way she used to say it when Nathan was young and I worried about him walking to school alone. Trust your gut, Harold. It has never been wrong about our boy. I stood up, grabbed my truck keys from the hook by the door, and headed out. The drive from East Atlanta to Buckhead took 40 minutes in late morning traffic. Every mile north felt like crossing into a different country. My neighborhood had corner stores, barbershops, houses with chain-link fences, and kids on bicycles. By the time I hit Peachtree Road, everything turned to glass towers and manicured hedges and cars that cost more than some people's houses. My truck, a 2009 Ford F-150, with 200,000 miles and a scratch along the passenger side from a ladder that slid off the rack back in 2016, looked more out of place with every block. Work truck through and through, the kind of vehicle that usually pulled around to service entrances. Caldwell Properties occupied a 15-story building on Peachtree Street. All reflective glass and polished stone. The kind of architecture that announced money before you ever walked through the door. Gold, lettering above the entrance. A doorman in a gray uniform standing outside like a soldier guarding a palace. I parked in the visitor garage between a white BMW and a black Mercedes. Sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel. "What are you doing, Harold?" "Just go home. He is fine." But my hands were already reaching for the door handle. My legs were already carrying me toward the lobby entrance. The automatic doors opened into a space that probably cost more to decorate than my entire house and the three beside it combined. White marble floors so polished I could see my reflection. Modern art on the walls, the kind with no clear subject, just shapes and colors that probably meant something to someone with a degree in it. A reception desk curved like a wave, dark wood, brass fittings. A young woman sat behind it. Headset on, nails manicured. Her nameplate read, Cynthia Walsh. She looked up with a practiced smile. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" "I am looking for my son, Nathan Green. He started here this week." Something happened to her face. The smile did not drop, but it changed. Became careful. Her eyes flicked to the left, toward the hallway beyond the elevators, then back to me. "Oh, Mr. Green. Let me see if I can locate him for you." She reached for her phone, but I was already looking past her, past the reception desk, down the wide corridor that led deeper into the building. And that is when I saw him. Nathan came around a corner carrying 3 garment bags over his shoulder. Plastic-wrapped suits, fresh from dry cleaning. He walked quickly, head down, trying to be invisible. His own suit, the one he had put on with such care this morning, was wrinkled at the shoulders from the weight of the hangers. A man in an expensive gray suit walked toward him from the opposite direction. Did not step aside. Nathan had to flatten himself against the wall to let him pass. The garment bags bunching against the marble. The man did not even look at him, just walked past like Nathan was part of the furniture. My chest went tight. Then a voice. Loud. Carrying down the corridor. With the confidence of someone who never worried about being overheard. "Nathan. Over here. Now." Preston Caldwell emerged from a glass-walled office. 58 years old. Silver hair swept back from his forehead. Tan that said, "Country Club, not construction site." His suit was navy, perfectly cut, and he moved the way rich men move, like the air itself owed him space. 2 men flanked him. A client in a light gray suit, and a younger man I would later learn was Kevin, Preston's personal assistant. They were heading toward the lobby, toward me. Nathan hurried over, still carrying the garment bags. "Yes, sir?" Preston did not look at him. He was talking to the client, laughing about something. A golf tournament, a fundraiser, something that did not matter. Then he glanced at Nathan the way you glance at a coat rack. "Hang those in my office. Then come hold the door for Mr. Richardson. He is leaving." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Yes, sir." He turned to go, but Preston caught his arm. Casual, like grabbing a piece of furniture to steady yourself. "Oh, and Nathan." He turned to the client with a wide smile. "Richard, do not mind him. That is just my daughter's little charity project. Keeps him out of trouble while Vanessa and I figure out what to do with him." The client laughed. A polite, uncomfortable laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. Nathan's face went red, from his neck up to his ears. A flush I had seen only a few times in his life. Shame. Pure shame. His hands trembled on the garment bag hangers. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closed it, swallowed whatever words were there. He turned and walked away quickly down the corridor, shoulders hunched, carrying another man's dry cleaning. Preston watched him go with a small smile. Then he and the client walked toward the lobby doors, passing within 10 feet of where I stood near the reception desk. Preston did not notice me. Why would he? I was just an old man in work boots and a flannel shirt. Nobody worth seeing. They walked out through the automatic doors, still laughing. I stood there. My hands were fists at my sides, my knuckles white. Every muscle in my body pulled tight, like wire under too much current. I could feel my heartbeat in my temples, in my throat, behind my eyes. Cynthia at the reception desk was watching me. Her face had gone pale. She had seen it too. Saw it every day, probably. She opened her mouth. Maybe to say something kind. Maybe to apologize on behalf of the building. But I was already turning away. I walked back through those automatic doors, through the parking garage, to my truck, sat in the driver's seat, and gripped the steering wheel until my forearms ached. Nathan never saw me. Never knew I was there. But I saw everything. And here is what Preston Caldwell did not know. Could not have known. Because nobody knew except me, and a filing cabinet full of deeds locked in a safe in my bedroom. That building. The one with the marble lobby and the gold lettering and the 15 floors of glass. The one where my son just carried dry cleaning like a servant. Preston Caldwell did not own it. He leased it. Had leased it for 15 years from a company called Magnolia Holdings. Magnolia Holdings was me. I owned the ground Preston Caldwell stood on. Every floor, every wall, every square inch of marble. He made my son walk across carrying his suits. I sat in my truck for a long time. 5 minutes, maybe 20, watching people come and go through those glass doors, living their professional lives in a building they thought belonged to Preston Caldwell. Then I started the engine and drove home. Slowly, carefully. The way a man drives when he is not in a hurry, because he already knows exactly what he is going to do. The house was quiet when I walked back in. Same quiet it always was. Heater humming. Refrigerator clicking. The magnolia tree outside scratching its branches against the kitchen window the way it did when the breeze picked up. But the quiet felt different now. Charged. Like a circuit waiting for someone to flip the switch. I did not go to the kitchen. Did not pour more coffee or sit on the porch or pretend this was a normal Tuesday afternoon. I walked straight down the hall to my bedroom, past the photo of Diane and me at our wedding. The one where she wore that yellow dress because she said white was for people with no imagination. Past Nathan's school pictures, lined along the wall. Past 30 years of living small and careful and quiet. In my bedroom closet, behind a row of flannel shirts and 2 winter coats I had not worn in 3 years, sat a safe, floor model. 600 pounds. I installed it myself in 1995 when Diane told me she was tired of worrying about paperwork getting lost. I knelt down, turned the combination. 3 numbers. Diane's birthday. The lock clicked and the heavy door swung open. Inside was not cash. Not gold. Not anything dramatic like in the movies. Just folders. Thick manila folders. Each one labeled in my handwriting, stacked neat and organized the way an electrician organizes his tools. Everything in its place. Everything accounted for. 47 folders. 47 properties. I pulled them out one by one, carried them to the kitchen table, and spread them across the surface like a map of the last 35 years of my life. The first folder was labeled 1422 Glenwood Avenue. A duplex in East Atlanta I bought in 1989 for $63,000. I was 31 years old, running a 2-man electrical crew. And Diane told me one night over dinner that we should put our savings somewhere real. Somewhere it could grow while we slept. She was right. She was always right about money, about people, about most things. I bought that duplex with cash, fixed the wiring myself, patched the roof with help from a buddy, and rented both units within a month. $350 a month each. Not much, but it was a start. The second property came 2 years later. Then another in '93. By '97, I had 7. By 2005, I had 22. By 2015, 47. Always the same approach. Never flashy, never fast. 1 or 2 properties a year when the numbers made sense. Fix them myself when I could. Hire good people when I could not. Live below my means. Drive the same truck until the transmission gave out. Wear the same boots until the soles wore thin. Let the world think Harold Green was just a blue-collar electrician living paycheck to paycheck in a modest bungalow. Diane understood. She never wanted the big house or the fancy car. She wanted security. She wanted Nathan's college paid for without loans. She wanted to know that if something happened, her family would be fine. We built that together, quietly. Over decades. After she passed, I kept building. What else was I going to do? Retire and stare at walls? The properties gave me purpose, gave me something to manage, something to grow. And nobody needed to know. Nathan did not know the full extent. He knew I owned a few rental units. Thought maybe 8 or 10. He had no idea about the scope. Nobody did. I ran everything through Magnolia Holdings, the LLC I set up in 2001. Named it after Diane. She loved magnolias. Said they reminded her of her grandmother's yard in Savannah. The LLC kept my name off public records. Tenants wrote checks to Magnolia Holdings. Banks corresponded with Magnolia Holdings. Tax returns filed under Magnolia Holdings. Harold Green did not exist in the commercial real estate world of Atlanta, and that is exactly how I wanted it. I sat at the kitchen table now, looking at the spread. 47 properties. Residential rentals mostly. Duplexes and small apartment buildings scattered across East Atlanta, Decatur, College Park, East Point. Solid working-class neighborhoods. Good tenants. Steady income. But 4 folders sat separate from the rest. 4 that I pulled to the center of the table and opened side by side. 345 Peachtree Street, Buckhead. 15-story commercial office building. Leased to Caldwell Properties since 2009. 1200 Piedmont Avenue. Midtown. 8-story mixed-use building. Leased to Caldwell Properties since 2011. 728 West Paces Ferry Road, Buckhead. 6-story office complex. Leased to Caldwell Properties since 2013. 91 14th Street, Midtown. 10-story commercial tower. Leased to Caldwell Properties since 2015. 4 buildings, 4 leases. All with Caldwell Properties as the tenant. All expiring within 45 days of each other because I structured them that way on purpose back when I acquired them. A good electrician always plans for the possibility that a system might need to be shut down all at once. I never thought I would need to use that option. Preston Caldwell had been a reliable tenant for years. Paid on time, maintained the spaces, never caused problems. I did not know him personally, had never met him face to face. Our entire relationship existed on paper, between his property management company and Magnolia Holdings, layers of lawyers and LLC filings between us, until my son married his daughter 2 years ago. Even then, I did not think much of it. Coincidence. Atlanta is a big city but a small world, especially in business. I figured Preston would treat Nathan well. Why would he not? The boy was smart, hard-working, family now. I figured wrong. I looked at the 4 lease agreements. Each one clearly stated the terms. Each one clearly stated the expiration date. Each one clearly stated that renewal was at the sole discretion of the landlord. Preston Caldwell paid Magnolia Holdings $340,000 a month in rent across those 4 buildings. $340,000. Every single month for over a decade. Without that space, Caldwell Properties had no headquarters, no satellite offices, no client meeting rooms, no operations center. Without those 4 buildings, Preston Caldwell had no company, and he had never once thought to find out who Magnolia Holdings actually was. I sat back in my chair and looked at Diane's photo. The evening light coming through the kitchen window made it glow soft gold. "You always told me to be patient," I said to her. "To play the long game. Never show your hand until you are ready." The house was quiet around me. Just the click of the refrigerator. The scratch of the magnolia branch. Well, honey, I said, I think I am ready now. I gathered the folders carefully, returned 43 of them to the safe. But those 4, the Caldwell leases, I left on the kitchen table. I would need them tomorrow, and the day after, and every day, until Preston Caldwell learned what it meant to humiliate the son of the man who owned his world. $340,000 a month, 15 years of checks, and he called my boy a charity project. I turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. Slept better than I had in months. The first call came at 8:47 that night. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the 4 lease folders still spread in front of me, making notes on a yellow legal pad, when Nathan's name lit up my phone screen. Hey kiddo, how was the rest of your first day? His voice came through tired but trying. The way a man sounds when he is holding something heavy and pretending it weighs nothing. It was fine, Dad. Long. Lots to learn. I waited. 40 years of being a father taught me that silence pulls more truth out of people than questions ever do. He exhaled. They have me doing some, I guess you would call it onboarding stuff. Orientation. Getting to know the building. Meeting people. Preston says everyone starts at the bottom, learns the company from the ground up. Even family. That sounds reasonable. I kept my voice neutral. Easy. Yeah. Vanessa said the same thing. She texted me during lunch. Said her dad likes people who do not complain. That it is just a testing period. Couple weeks tops. Then I will be in a real position. I looked at the lease agreements on my table. At the notes I had started writing. Testing period. Well, you hang in there. First days are always the hardest. Yeah. He paused. I mean, it is not exactly what I pictured when they said management track, but I trust the process. Good. Get some rest. I will. Love you, Dad. Love you too, son. I set the phone down and stared at it for a long time. Trust the process. Vanessa's words coming out of my son's mouth like programming. I thought about Nathan carrying dry cleaning through that lobby, about Preston's hand on his arm, about the word charity hanging in the air while my son's face turned red. Testing period. Right. The second night, Nathan called at 9:15. His voice was different. Flatter. Like something had been pressed out of it. Hey, Dad. Hey. How was day 2? A long pause. They had me working the parking garage today, directing cars for a client event. Preston was hosting on the 8th floor. 4 hours standing in a parking garage, telling people where to park. In your suit? He laughed. It was not a real laugh. No. Kevin. That is Preston's assistant. Kevin told me to change into something more appropriate. Gave me a company polo shirt and khakis from a supply closet. Said I could not be seen in a suit if I was working the lot. That it would confuse the clients. I closed my eyes. Breathed in through my nose. Out through my mouth. The way Diane used to remind me when my temper ran hot. Did Preston say anything to you directly? Not much. He walked through the garage with a group of people. Saw me directing a car. He just sort of gestured at me and said something to the group. I could not hear what. They laughed. My hand tightened on the phone. What did Vanessa say? She said it is normal. That her dad does this with all new employees. Wants them to understand every level of the operation. She said I should consider it flattering that he is investing time in training me personally. Flattering. Nathan was quiet for a second. I know it sounds rough, Dad, but I can handle it. Everyone has to pay their dues. Right? I did not get my MBA to be too proud for grunt work. I wanted to tell him. Right there. I wanted to say, son, that man does not own a single square foot of the building he humiliates you in. I own it. All of it. And in 43 days his lease expires. But I could not. Not yet. If Nathan confronted Preston, if he showed any sign that he knew something was coming, Preston would get defensive. would dig in, would make things worse. So I said, "You are right. Paying dues. Just keep your head up. Always do." Night, Dad. Night, son. Day 3. The call came at 10, later than usual. Nathan sounded exhausted. Not just physically, something deeper. "He made me serve coffee today, Dad. Full meeting. 8 people in a conference room." Preston pointed at the coffee station and said, "Nathan, be useful." I spent the whole meeting refilling cups and clearing pastry plates while they discussed a $50 million development deal. My MBA thesis was on commercial real estate development strategy. I could have contributed. Instead, I was pouring cream. I stared at the ceiling of my kitchen, counted to 5 before I spoke. Anyone say anything? Any of the other people in the room? One guy looked uncomfortable. Older guy, gray hair. Did not say anything, though. Everyone else just acted like it was normal. Like I was supposed to be there with the coffee pot. "And Vanessa?" She says her dad is impressed with my attitude. That I am handling the transition well. Transition. Testing period. Training. How many words did they have for what they were doing to my son? "You are handling it well, Nathan. You are strong. Thanks, Dad. I just keep telling myself it will get better," Vanessa promised. 2 weeks, she said. Just 2 weeks of this. 2 weeks. I looked at my notes on the legal pad. My timeline. 42 days until the leases expired. I could wait. I had waited 35 years to build what I built. I could wait 42 more days. But hearing my son's voice crack on the word "promised" made the waiting feel like holding a live wire with bare hands. Day 4. 9:30 at night. Nathan did not call. I sat at the table until 10. Then 10:30. Then I picked up the phone and dialed his number. He answered on the 4th ring. "Hey, Dad. Sorry. I was going to call. Just got home. Late night. What happened today?" Long silence. Then a breath that shook on the way out. Preston had visitors. Business associates from Savannah. We had lunch in the executive dining room on the top floor. He introduced everyone around the table. VP of Finance, Director of Acquisitions, Chief Legal Counsel. Then he got to me. He paused. When he spoke again, his voice was small. He said, "And this is Nathan. He helps around the office. That is all. Not my title, not my MBA, not his son-in-law. Just, he helps around the office." Then he told me to clear the lunch plates. "Nathan." One of the Savannah guys looked right at me, Dad. Looked me up and down. And he said, "You all hiring from the temp agency now?" Everyone laughed. Preston laughed the hardest. I stood up from my chair, walked to the window, looked out at my dark street. The magnolia tree, just a shadow in the April night. My reflection stared back at me, an old man with calloused hands and a jaw set so tight it ached. "Son, listen to me. Just a little longer. Can you do that?" "Why do you keep saying that, Dad?" His voice cracked. "Just a little longer. Like you know something I do not. Because I know you. I know what you are capable of. And I know this will not last forever. Nothing does." He was quiet for a long time. Then a wet breath. The sound of a man trying not to cry. "Okay. Okay, Dad. I trust you. I trust you." Those words hit me harder than anything Preston Caldwell could ever say. My son, trusting me, while I sat on the weapon that could end this tomorrow. Waiting. Planning. While he suffered. After he hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen and stared at the legal pad. 41 days on the lease. Tomorrow, I would call Ray. Tomorrow, I would start putting the pieces together. Tomorrow, the plan would begin to move. But tonight, I just sat with the guilt of a father who could stop his son's pain and chose to wait. Diane's photo watched me from the shelf. I swore I could feel her hand on my shoulder. Patient, Harold. You know what you are doing. I hoped she was right. I called Ray Whitfield at 6:30 the next morning. He picked up on the second ring because Ray always picks up on the second ring. 25 years of friendship and the man has never once let my call go to voicemail. Harold. It is early even for you. What is wrong? I need your help with something. Can you meet me? Waffle House. Decatur. 30 minutes. I will be there in 20. That was Ray. No hesitation. No questions about why or what or whether it could wait. Just when and where. Ray Whitfield was 55 years old. Retired Atlanta PD after 22 years on the force. The last 8 in financial crimes. He left at 48 when his knees were done with patrol and his brain was done with bureaucracy. Now he ran a small private investigation firm on Ponce de Leon Avenue. Background checks mostly. Some insurance fraud. The occasional cheating spouse. He was good at it because Ray had a mind, like a circuit board, everything connected, everything traced back to a source. We had been friends since 1999 when I rewired his mother's house in Kirkwood for free after a storm knocked her power out. He showed up the next Saturday with a case of beer and said, "I owe you one." That one turned into 25 years of fishing trips, Sunday football, and the kind of friendship where you call at dawn and the other man is already reaching for his keys. The Waffle House on East College Avenue was mostly empty. 2 truckers at the counter. A waitress named Deborah who knew my order without asking. Ray was already in the back booth. Laptop open, reading glasses on, coffee steaming beside a half-eaten waffle. "You look like you have not slept." I told him everything. The surprise visit. Nathan carrying dry cleaning. Preston's hand on his arm. Charity project. The 4 lease agreements. Magnolia Holdings. All of it. Ray listened without interrupting. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "So your son's father-in-law treats Nathan like dirt, humiliates him in front of clients. And this man has been paying you $340,000 a month in rent for 15 years without knowing it is you." "That is correct." A slow smile crossed his face. "Harold, you are sitting on a nuclear weapon, and the man does not even know you exist. What I need is information. Financial health. Debt. Vulnerabilities. Before I move, I need to know exactly what I am dealing with." Ray pulled a notebook from his jacket. "Give me 48 hours. He stood, dropped a 10 on the table, and paused. "Be careful. Men like Preston have connections. Lawyers. Politicians. If he catches wind someone is poking around, he will push back hard." "I know. 48 hours, Harold." 2 days later. Friday morning. Same booth. Ray had a folder this time. Thick. Printed pages, spreadsheets, highlighted sections. He slid it across the table before I sat down. "Your boy's father-in-law is drowning, Harold." I opened it. Red numbers everywhere. Caldwell Properties owes $14 million to 3 banks. First National, SunTrust, and a regional credit union in Buckhead. 2 major projects failed in 18 months. A luxury condo complex in Midtown that ran out of funding at 60%. A mixed-use development in West Midtown that never broke ground after permits got revoked. He has been juggling for 2 years. Ray continued. Moving money between accounts. Making minimum payments. But one bank filed a notice of default 6 weeks ago. 90 days to cure. Or they start foreclosure. How has he kept this quiet? Good lawyers. Good PR. And nobody looking hard enough. His board knows some of it. But Preston controls information like a dictator. I flipped to the last section. Ray had highlighted something in yellow. "What is this?" Ray lowered his voice. Discrepancies in his property tax filings. 3. Buildings with assessed values that do not match what he reports to the county. The differences are not small. Millions in unreported value. Possible tax evasion. Can you prove it? Not yet. I need internal records. But the public filings smell wrong. If the IRS decided to audit, it could be devastating for Preston Caldwell. I closed the folder. 14 million in debt. 2 failed projects. Banks circling. Possibly cheating on his taxes. And this man makes my son carry his dry cleaning and pour his coffee like a servant. The leases expire in 41 days, I said. Ray nodded. If I do not renew, he loses his headquarters, his satellite offices, his operations center. With 14 million in debt and banks threatening foreclosure, losing 4 buildings at once would be terminal. Not catastrophic, Ray said quietly. Terminal. The company would not survive. I sat with that word. Terminal. One decision from me and Preston Caldwell's empire collapses. Not because I destroyed it, because he built it on ground he never owned and never thought to check whose name was on the deed. I need you to keep digging, I said. The tax situation. Every discrepancy. Every filing that does not add up. If there is a pattern, I want to see it. You got it. He tucked the folder under his arm. Harold? Yeah? What Preston is doing to Nathan is not just cruelty. It is strategic. He is breaking your son down so Nathan never challenges him. Never feels worthy. Systematic degradation. I have seen it in abusive bosses. Cult leaders. It does not stop on its own. Men like Preston stop when someone makes them stop. I looked at my oldest friend. The man who understood without needing everything spelled out. That is exactly what I intend to do. On my terms. On my timeline. With my son's dignity intact at the end. Ray tapped the table twice with his knuckle. The way he always did when he agreed completely. Then let us get to work. Monica Sears had her office on the 9th floor of a building on West Peachtree Street in Midtown. Not flashy. Not one of those corporate law firms with waterfalls in the lobby and associates who bill $400 an hour to read emails. Just a solid, respected real estate attorney who had been practicing in Atlanta for 18 years. Ray recommended her. Said she was smart, discreet, and did not scare easy. That was enough for me. I walked in at 9 on day 5 wearing my usual. Clean jeans, work boots, a button-down shirt I saved for occasions that required looking presentable without looking like I was trying. The receptionist showed me to Monica's office. Corner room, neat desk, law books lining one wall, windows facing the Atlanta skyline. She stood when I entered. 45 years old, sharp eyes behind black-framed glasses, hair pulled back in a way that said she did not have time for fuss. Her handshake was firm. Mr. Green. Please sit. Ray speaks very highly of you. He speaks highly of you too. That is why I am here. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. What can I help you with? I set a folder on her desk. Inside were the 4 lease agreements for the Caldwell Properties buildings. She opened it, scanned the first page, flipped to the second. Her eyes moved fast, absorbing legal language the way I read wiring diagrams. These are commercial leases, she said. Magnolia Holdings as landlord. Caldwell Properties as tenant. She looked up. You are Magnolia Holdings. I am. She returned to the documents. Flipped through all 4 agreements carefully. Took notes on a yellow pad. After several minutes, she set her pen down and folded her hands. Mr. Green. These leases are straightforward. Standard 15-year commercial agreements with no automatic renewal clause. Each one expires within a 45-day window of the others, the earliest in 39 days from today. Renewal is explicitly at the sole discretion of the landlord. That is you. So if I choose not to renew, then Caldwell Properties must vacate all 4 premises upon lease expiration. You are not obligated to provide reason. You simply provide written notice of non-renewal within the contractual notification period, which she checked the document, is 30 days prior to expiration. You are still within that window. I leaned back in my chair. And legally, there is nothing they can do to force renewal? Nothing. These are ironclad lease agreements, Mr. Green. Whoever drafted them for Magnolia Holdings did excellent work. She paused. Was that you? My wife helped. Long time ago. Monica nodded with what I thought was a trace of admiration. Preston Caldwell signed these agreements willingly. He accepted the terms. He had his own lawyers review them at the time. There is no ambiguity here. If you choose not to renew, he has no legal recourse to compel you. He will try to fight it. Of course he will. She leaned forward. He will likely file for an injunction claiming the non-renewal constitutes tortious interference with his business operations. His lawyers will argue that the timing is retaliatory. They will attempt to frame you as a hostile actor. Will any of that work? Not if we handle this correctly. She pulled a fresh legal pad toward her. The key is documentation and procedure. We send formal non-renewal notices exactly as specified in the contracts. We do not deviate from standard language. We provide no reason beyond exercising your contractual right. If he sues, we respond with the lease terms themselves. The law is clear. A landlord has no obligation to renew a commercial lease absent a renewal clause. Period. I nodded. What do you need from me? Your signature on 4 non-renewal notices. I will draft them today. We can have them sent via certified mail by end of week. That gives Caldwell Properties the required 30-day notice before the first lease expires. Do it. She made a note. One more thing, Mr. Green. Once these notices go out, Preston Caldwell will know someone is making a move. He will try to find out who Magnolia Holdings is. The LLC structure will slow him down, but eventually he may trace it back to you. Are you prepared for that? I looked out her window at the Atlanta skyline. Somewhere out there, in one of those glass towers I could see from this chair, my son was carrying someone's coffee, or holding someone's door, or being introduced as nobody worth remembering. I am prepared, I said. But I would prefer he not find out until I am ready for him to know. Then we keep the LLC layers intact and communicate only through my office. All correspondence goes through me. Your name stays off everything until you choose otherwise. Good. She stood and extended her hand. I will have the documents ready by tomorrow morning for your signature. I shook her hand and walked out feeling something I had not felt in days. Control. Quiet. Steady control. The kind I used to feel on a job site when the wiring was laid out perfect and all that remained was connecting the last circuit. That night, Nathan called at 9:45. Day 5. Hey, Dad. Hey, son. How was today? A pause. The kind that carried weight. Preston had a board meeting this morning. I was not in it, obviously. But beforehand, he called me into the conference room. Told me the table needed wiping down. That there were watermarks from the last meeting. He wiped the table. With what? A rag. He pointed at the supply closet and said, "Make it presentable." I spent 20 minutes wiping down a conference table while his assistant Kevin stood in the doorway watching. When I finished, Kevin looked at the table and said, "Missed a spot." Then he laughed and walked away. I closed my eyes. Breathed slow. Vanessa says it is almost over, Nathan continued. Says her dad is planning to move me into a real role next week. Assistant to the VP of Acquisitions. She says just a few more days. A few more days. I had heard that before. Testing period. 2 weeks. Almost over. Always just around the corner. Always just far enough away to keep him compliant. That sounds promising, I said. Just a little longer, Nathan. Yeah. He exhaled. I know. I just keep telling myself it will be worth it. After he hung up, I walked to the kitchen table where the legal pad sat. Added a line to my timeline. Day 5. Monica drafting non-renewal notices. Signing tomorrow. Sent by end of week. 39 days until first lease expires. Below that, I wrote one more line. Nathan wiping tables. Kevin laughing. Then I turned off the light and went to bed. Tomorrow I would sign papers that would set this in motion. No turning back after that. I looked at Diane's photo one last time in the dark hallway. 39 days, honey. Can he hold on that long? The house gave me no answer. But I knew what Diane would have said. He is your son, Harold. He is stronger than he knows. I hope she was right. Because 39 days felt like a lifetime when your boy was being broken one humiliation at a time. I signed the non-renewal notices in Monica's office at 8:30 on day 6. 4 documents. 4 signatures. My hand did not shake. Each stroke of the pen felt like closing a circuit I had been wiring for 15 years without knowing it. Monica collected the papers and placed them in a folder. I will hold these until you give the word to send. Once they go out via certified mail, the clock starts. 30 days. Not yet, I said. I want to choose the moment. She nodded. Smart. Timing is everything. In situations like this. You will know when. I drove home with the windows down. April air warm and sweet. Dogwoods dropping white petals on the road like confetti. I felt calm. Focused. The way I used to feel on a big job when all the planning was done and all that remained was execution. That calm lasted exactly 4 hours. At 1 in the afternoon, I was in my backyard watering the tomato plants. Diane started 20 years ago that I never had the heart to let die. My phone buzzed. Monica's name on the screen. Mr. Green. I just received something interesting at my office. A letter from Whitmore and Associates, addressed to Magnolia Holdings. Who is Whitmore and Associates? Preston Caldwell's law firm. My hand tightened on the garden hose. What does it say? She read it aloud. Standard legal language dressed up to sound intimidating. The letter alleged that unnamed parties had been making inquiries into Caldwell Properties' financial records. It characterized these inquiries as potentially constituting tortious interference with business relationships and unfair business practices. It demanded that all such activities cease immediately, or Caldwell Properties would pursue legal action to the fullest extent. Can they do anything with this? I asked. Monica's voice was steady. It is a scare tactic, Mr. Green. A shot across the bow. They cannot sue Magnolia Holdings for existing. They cannot sue you for not renewing a lease. And they certainly cannot prove tortious interference based on someone looking at public records. This letter has no legal teeth. It is designed to frighten, but it means he knows someone is looking. Yes. Someone tipped him off that inquiries were being made. He does not know who or why, but he is nervous enough to have his lawyers send warning letters to his landlord. I turned off the hose. Stood in my backyard looking at the magnolia tree, its leaves dark green and glossy in the afternoon sun. He sent it to Magnolia Holdings. Does that mean he knows I am connected to the inquiries? Not necessarily. He may be sending these to anyone in his orbit who might pose a threat. His landlord would be a logical target. If someone is trying to destabilize his business, controlling his physical space would be an obvious pressure point. He is fishing. Let him fish. We proceed as planned. Agreed. I will draft a response. Polite, professional, legally bulletproof. Magnolia Holdings has no knowledge of any inquiries and rejects the characterization entirely. Standard stuff. Good. I hung up and stood there for a long time in my yard. Preston was rattled. Good. But rattled men do desperate things. I needed to be careful. The next morning, day 7, I noticed something. A dark blue sedan parked on the street 2 houses down from mine. Engine off, windows tinted. It had not been there the night before. I watched it from my front porch while I drank my coffee. Sat there for 20 minutes. Nobody got in or out. Could be nothing. A neighbor's guest. Someone waiting for an appointment. But 40 years of working in other people's buildings teaches you to notice when something is out of place. A wire that does not match the others. A panel that was opened recently. Small things that tell a story. I went about my day. Drove to the hardware store. Came back. The sedan was still there. I drove to the grocery store. Came back. Still there. Different angle now, facing my driveway instead of away from it. I called Ray. Dark blue sedan, I said. Tinted windows. Been outside my house since this morning. Georgia plates. You get the plate number? I read it to him. Give me an hour. Ray called back in 40 minutes. Registered to a private security firm in Buckhead. Garrison Protective Services. Guess who their biggest client is? Preston Caldwell. Got it in one. He has someone watching you, Harold. Or watching your address, at least. He may not know you are Magnolia Holdings yet, but he is spreading a net. I looked out my window at the sedan. Whoever was inside could see my front door, my driveway, my truck. Could see me come and go. But what would they report? An old man, in a bungalow, watering tomatoes. Nothing threatening about that. Let them watch, I said. They will not see anything useful. Just be aware. If they are watching you, they might be following you too. Be careful where you go and who you meet. Understood. That night, Nathan called at 9. Day 7. His voice carried something new. Not just exhaustion or shame. Something sharper. Suspicion. Hey, Dad. Hey, kiddo. How was today? Preston sent me to buy a gift. A necklace. For a woman named Heather. I waited. His wife's name is Margaret, Dad. He sent me to a jewelry store on Peachtree to buy a diamond necklace for someone who is not his wife. Told me to have it gift-wrapped and to keep my mouth shut about it. I sat down at the kitchen table slowly, and I went. I did it. Bought a $3,000 necklace for his mistress and smiled at the jewelry store clerk like everything was normal, because that is what I do now. I run errands. I fetch things. I keep secrets for a man who treats me like a dog. Nathan, I am sorry, but that is not even why I called. He paused. Something is wrong with Vanessa. Dad, wrong how? She has been distant all week, disappearing for hours, not answering texts. Yesterday I came home and she was on the phone in the bedroom, hung up the second I walked in. Would not tell me who it was. My gut tightened. The same gut that told me to drive to Buckhead on day 1. Have you asked her directly? I tried. She said it was a friend from college. But she would not look at me when she said it. And she smiled this weird smile, like she thought the whole situation was funny. I stared at the dark sedan still parked outside my window. Preston watching me. Vanessa hiding something from Nathan. Everything closing in from multiple directions, at once. Son, I said carefully. Just focus on yourself right now. Do not push Vanessa. Just pay attention. Pay attention to what? To everything. To what people say, and what they do. And whether those two things match. He was quiet for a long moment. Dad, are you trying to tell me something? I am trying to tell you to trust your instincts. You are smarter than they think. Smarter than they want you to be. After he hung up, I sat in the dark watching that sedan through my window. Preston had sent his dogs. Fine. Let them sit there, burning gas and reporting nothing. But Vanessa, that worried me more than any surveillance car. Because if she was hiding something, if she was part of whatever game Preston was playing, then Nathan was surrounded. Enemies at work and enemies at home. The storm was coming faster than I planned. Day 8 broke me in a way I was not prepared for. I had spent the afternoon reviewing Ray's latest findings. More discrepancies in Preston's tax filings. A pattern emerging. Ray was close to something concrete, but needed another day or two to confirm. I was at the kitchen table making notes when my phone rang at 7:43. Nathan's name on the screen. Earlier than usual. That alone told me something was wrong. Hey, kiddo. The sound that came through the phone was not a word. It was a breath. Ragged. Wet. The kind of sound a man makes when he is trying to speak, and his body will not let him. Nathan. Talk to me. What happened? Another breath. Then his voice, small and cracked in a way I had not heard, since he was 17 years old, standing in a hospital hallway being told his mother was gone. Dad, I found something. I stood up from the table. My hand gripped the phone tight enough to turn my knuckles white. Tell me. I came home early today. Preston let me leave at 5 for once. Vanessa was in the shower. Her phone was on the kitchen counter. It buzzed. I was not trying to look, Dad. I was not snooping. But the notification just showed up on the screen. What did it say? It was a text. From someone named Derek. It said, "Tonight, at 8, same place. Miss you." I closed my eyes. I should have left it alone, Nathan continued. Should have waited. Asked her calmly. But I could not. I picked up her phone and scrolled back through the conversation. How far back? 3 months, Dad. 3 months of messages. Pictures. Plans. Hotels. He exhaled hard. She has been seeing someone else since before I started at Caldwell Properties. Since before any of this. I walked to the window. The sedan was gone tonight. Small mercy. Nathan. I am sorry, son. That is not the worst part. His voice shifted. From broken to something else. Something colder. When she came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed holding her phone. She saw my face and she did not even flinch, Dad. Did not panic. Did not cry. She just looked at me and said, "Oh, you found out. Like it was nothing. Like it was nothing." He repeated. Like I had found a grocery receipt or a parking ticket. Not 3 months of her sleeping with another man. What did you say to her? I asked her why. Why marry me? Why stay? Why let me go through this hell at her father's company if she did not even want to be with me? And? Nathan's voice dropped to barely a whisper. She laughed, Dad. She actually laughed. Then she sat down on the edge of the bed and crossed her legs like we were having a casual conversation. And she told me everything. I braced myself. Leaned against the kitchen counter because my legs did not feel steady enough to hold me. She said the marriage was her father's idea. From the beginning. Preston wanted someone from a different background. Someone he could control. Someone who would be grateful enough for the opportunity that they would tolerate anything. She said I was. And these are her exact words. A convenient match from a convenient class. My jaw locked so tight I felt it in my temples. She said Preston never intended to give me a real position. The whole point was to show me my place. To prove to his board, his partners, his world, that someone like me could never operate at their level. That I would always be the charity project. The help. The joke. Nathan. And when I asked her why she went along with it, why she married me if she never loved me, she said, "Because Daddy asked me to. And because you were easy to convince." I gripped the edge of the counter. My knuckles were white. My vision blurred for a second. Not with tears, but with a rage so pure, it felt like electricity running through my entire body. She said, "One more thing, Dad." Before I walked out. "What?" She said, "You were never my choice, Nathan. You were my father's idea of a joke that went too far. And honestly, you should have quit the first day. The fact that you stayed just proved him right." The silence after those words stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. I could hear Nathan breathing. Could hear the road noise in the background. He was already driving. "Where are you right now?" I asked. "In my car." "On I-20. Coming home." "Okay. Good. You drive safe. I will leave the porch light on." "Dad?" "Yeah, son. I am done. I am done with her. Done with Preston. Done pretending this is some kind of test I am supposed to pass. They broke me down for 8 days, and the whole time it was just entertainment for them. A game. I know, Nathan. I gave everything. My pride. My dignity. My time. And it was never going to lead anywhere. There was never a real position. Never a future there. It was a setup from day one. I know. You know? His voice sharpened. How do you know? Because I am your father. And I have been watching. And I promise you, Nathan, this is not the end of this story. Not even close. He was quiet for a long moment. Just road noise and breathing. I will be there in 20 minutes. He said finally. I will be here. The line went dead. I set my phone on the counter and stood there in my kitchen, hands shaking. Not from fear, from the effort of holding back, of not calling Preston Caldwell right now and telling him exactly what was coming. 8 days. They had systematically humiliated my son for 8 days. Made him serve, fetch, clean, bow. And the whole time, his wife was laughing about it behind his back. The whole time. It was a game designed to break him. I looked at Diane's photo. My hands slowly unclenched. They think they broke him, I said to her. They think they won. I walked to the front door and turned on the porch light. Then I went back to the kitchen table, sat down, and waited for my son to come home. 20 minutes. Then, everything changes. The front door opened at 8:22. I heard it from the kitchen where I had been sitting in silence, hands folded on the table, staring at nothing. The sound of keys dropping on the hall table, shoes on hardwood. Then Nathan appeared in the kitchen doorway. He looked like a man who had been through a car wreck. Suit wrinkled, tie gone, eyes red-rimmed and hollow. The kind of hollow that comes from crying so hard your body gives up and goes numb. He carried a single duffel bag over one shoulder, whatever he could grab in 5 minutes. He did not say anything, just dropped the bag by the door and walked to his chair. The same chair. Every time in his life when things fell apart, he came back to this chair at this table, in this kitchen. I stood and put the coffee on. Said nothing. Some moments do not need words. They need time, space, the sound of a familiar kitchen doing familiar things. The coffee maker gurgled. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed on Flat Shoals Avenue. Headlights sweeping across the window and disappearing. I poured 2 cups. Set one in front of him. Black, the way he had taken it since college. Sat back down across from him. Nathan wrapped his hands around the mug but did not drink. Just held it. Let the heat seep into his fingers. 5 minutes passed. Maybe more. Then he lifted his head and looked at me. His eyes were different. Still hurt. Still red. But underneath the pain, something else was forming. Something harder. Something I recognized because I had seen it in my own mirror for the past 8 days. You knew, he said. His voice was quiet but steady. Not an accusation. A statement. I knew something was wrong. Yes, before today. Before Vanessa. You knew about Preston. About what he was doing to me. And you did not just sit here feeling helpless. You have been doing something. I held his gaze. Said nothing yet. Dad. His hands tightened on the mug. You have been too calm. This whole week. Every night I called you broken and desperate, and you just said, a little longer. You were not just being patient. You were buying time. You were planning. The kitchen was silent, except for the clock on the wall. Tick. 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 I could have denied it. Could have said I was just being supportive. Just being a dad. But my son was sitting in front of me with his life in pieces. And he deserved the truth. All of it. Come with me, I said. I stood and walked down the hallway to my bedroom. Nathan followed. I knelt at the closet, moved the shirts aside, and turned the combination on the safe. Diane's birthday. The lock clicked. I pulled out the folders. Not all 47. Just the ones that mattered right now. 4 of them. I carried them back to the kitchen table and set them in front of Nathan. Open them. He opened the first one. Read the address. His brow furrowed. 345 Peachtree Street. That is the Caldwell headquarters. Keep reading. He turned pages. Lease agreement. Magnolia Holdings LLC listed as landlord. His eyes scanned the terms, the dates, the signatures. Then he opened the second folder. Third. Fourth. 4 buildings. All Caldwell Properties locations. All leased from Magnolia Holdings. Then he looked up at me. And I watched it happen. The realization. Dad. Magnolia Holdings. Is that you? I sat down across from him. It has been me for 24 years. Named it after your mother. She loved magnolias. Nathan stared at the folders. Then at me. Then back at the folders. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You own Preston's buildings. Every single one. The headquarters. The offices. All of it. All of it. $340,000 a month in rent. 15 years. He has never once asked who Magnolia Holdings actually is. Never thought to look. Nathan leaned back in his chair. His hands were no longer shaking. The hollowness in his eyes was filling with something else. Not hope, exactly. Something fiercer. How many properties total? 47. He blinked. 47. Dad. How? 35 years of living small and saving big. Your mother and I started in '89. One duplex in East Atlanta. Then another. Then another. Never flashy. Never fast. Nobody needed to know. Nathan looked around the kitchen. At the chipped linoleum. The cabinets I installed myself. The old stove. The modest bungalow of a retired electrician who everyone assumed lived paycheck to paycheck. All this time, he said slowly, you had all of this. And you never said anything. There was never a reason to say anything. Until now. He pulled the lease agreements toward him. Read them again. More carefully this time. His MBA brain kicking in, scanning terms and dates and clauses. These expire in what, 5 weeks? 37 days. And renewal is at my sole discretion. No automatic renewal clause. I have already signed the non-renewal notices. They are sitting in my lawyer's office ready to send. Nathan looked up. His eyes were bright now. Clear. The broken man who walked through my front door 20 minutes ago was disappearing. In his place sat someone else. Someone sharp and focused and ready. If you do not renew, he said, Preston loses every physical location his company operates from. With $14 million in debt and banks already circling, losing all 4 buildings simultaneously would be terminal, I said. That is the word Ray used. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down the folders, placed his hands flat on the table, and looked directly at me. You built all of this. 47 properties. 35 years. An entire empire that nobody knows about. And you never used it. Never showed it off. Never leveraged it. Until your son needed you to. I looked at my boy across the table. 17 years old, he stood in a hospital hallway and did not break. 22, he graduated top of his class and did not stop. Now, 32, he had been humiliated, manipulated, and betrayed by people he trusted. And instead of staying on the ground, he was getting up. That is what fathers do, I said. Nathan stood, walked around the table, and hugged me. Hard. The way he had not hugged me since he was a kid. His arms around my shoulders, his face pressed against the side of my head. I felt his breath shake once. Then steady. When he pulled back, his jaw was set. His eyes were dry. Tell me everything, Dad. Tell me how we end this. I looked at him. My son. Ready to fight. Together, I said. We end this together. He sat back down, pulled the folders toward him, and started reading again. Making notes. Asking questions. The MBA coming alive. The strategist waking up. It was past midnight when we finally stopped. The kitchen table was covered in papers, legal pads, empty coffee cups. Nathan had mapped out Preston's vulnerabilities on a yellow pad. cross-referenced the lease dates with the bank default timeline, identified pressure points I had not even considered. My son was back. Not the broken man who walked through the door. Not the man who carried dry cleaning and poured coffee and smiled while people laughed at him. This was the Nathan I raised. Smart, strategic, relentless when it mattered. I made us sandwiches at 1 in the morning. Turkey and cheese. We ate standing at the counter. Shoulder to shoulder. Not talking much. Just existing in the same space with the same purpose. Before he went upstairs to his old bedroom, Nathan stopped in the hallway. "Dad." "Yeah? Thank you. For waiting. For planning. For not telling me until I was ready to hear it." I nodded. "And Dad?" "We are going to win this." I looked at my son standing in the hallway of the house where he grew up, where Diane read him bedtime stories, where I taught him to tie his shoes and balance a checkbook and never back down from a fight worth fighting. "Yeah, son. We are." I woke at 5 on day 9 to the smell of coffee already brewing. Nathan was in the kitchen. Laptop open. Yellow legal pad, filled with notes. He looked like he had been up for hours. "Morning, Dad." I made coffee. I poured a cup and sat across from him. He had been mapping Preston's corporate structure, pulling public records, cross-referencing board members with the information Ray had gathered. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed on the counter. A text from an unknown number with a 404 area code. Atlanta. Local. I picked it up and read it. "Mr. Green. My name is Terrence Caldwell." "Yes. That Caldwell. I know what my father is doing to your son. I have information that can help you. I am not your enemy. Please meet me today. Piedmont Park. The bench near the lake. Noon. I will come alone." I read it twice, then set the phone on the table so Nathan could see. His face went hard. Terrence Caldwell. "Preston has a son?" "Apparently." Nathan shook his head. "Vanessa never mentioned a brother. Not once in 2 years of marriage. It is like he does not exist." That alone told me something. In the Caldwell world, people who did not exist had usually been erased on purpose. I called Ray. "Terrence Caldwell," I said. "Preston's son. What do you know?" Ray was quiet for a moment, typing in the background. "Give me 30 minutes. He called back in 20. Terrence Caldwell, 34 years old. Preston's firstborn from his first marriage. Worked at Caldwell Properties from age 22 to 29. Left the company 5 years ago. Or rather, was pushed out. There was a dispute, no public details, but Terrence filed a wrongful termination claim that was settled out of court with an NDA attached. So Preston fired his own son. Looks like it. After that, Terrence disappears from the Atlanta business world entirely. No corporate affiliations, no board memberships. Lives in a condo in Virginia Highland. Keeps a low profile. Could this be a trap? Preston using his son to get close to me? Possible. But the wrongful termination suit tells me there is bad blood. You do not sue your own father and then do his bidding 5 years later. At least, most people do not. I stared at the message on my phone. Risk. Everything about this was risk. But every breakthrough in this fight had come from unexpected directions. Ray's investigation. Monica's legal expertise. Now this. I am going to meet him, I said. Ray sighed. Then I am running his background deeper while you drive. If anything comes back wrong, I will call you before you get there. Nathan stood from the table. I am coming with you. No. If this is genuine, I do not want to spook him. If it is a trap, I do not want you anywhere near it. Stay here. Keep working on the corporate structure. I will call you the second it is over. Nathan did not like it. I could see it in his jaw, the way it tightened. But he nodded. Be careful, Dad. Always am. Piedmont Park was 20 minutes from my house. One of Atlanta's gems, rolling green lawns, a lake that reflected the midtown skyline, joggers and dog walkers and families scattered across the paths. I parked on 10th Street and walked toward the lake. The bench was easy to find. A man sat there alone, mid-30s, dark hair, wearing a simple navy jacket and jeans. No briefcase, no bodyguard, just a man on a park bench, watching the water. He looked up as I approached. His face was calm but guarded. I studied it, looking for traces of Preston. Found them in the jawline, the set of the shoulders. But the eyes were different. Softer, carrying something heavier. "Mr. Green?" I nodded. "Terrence?" He stood and extended his hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "Thank you for coming. I know this must seem strange. It seems like a lot of things. Strange is one of them." I sat on the bench. He sat beside me, leaving respectful distance between us. "I will be direct," he said. "I know who you are. I know about Magnolia Holdings. I know you own the buildings my father leases. And I know what he has been doing to your son Nathan for the past 8 days. How do you know all that?" "Because I have been watching my father for 5 years, Mr. Green. Waiting for someone to finally stand up to him. Waiting for the right moment." He turned to face me fully. 5 years ago, my father fired me from Caldwell Properties. Told me I was not corporate enough, not polished enough. Said I embarrassed him in front of his board. What actually happened was I found discrepancies in the company's financial records. Tax filings that did not match internal numbers. I asked questions. He told me to stop. I did not stop, so he made me disappear. I watched his face. Saw the old wound there. The same wound Nathan carried now. Different method. Same cruelty. "He threw you away," I said. He erased me. Terrence's voice stayed level, but I could hear the current underneath. Settled the lawsuit with an NDA, so I could never talk about what I found. Cut me out of the family. Told Vanessa and everyone else that I was unstable, unreliable, that I left voluntarily. But you did not leave voluntarily. No. I was removed because I got too close to the truth. "What truth?" Terrence reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Not thick, but dense. He opened it on his lap. "My father has been evading taxes for 10 years. Underreporting property values. Hiding income through shell companies. Falsifying audit reports. The total amount I can document is $4.2 million in unpaid taxes." I looked at the papers. Spreadsheets. Bank records. Internal memos. The kind of evidence Ray had been hunting from the outside. Terrence had it from the inside. "Where did you get this?" "Curtis Monroe. He was the head accountant at Caldwell Properties. My father fired him 3 years ago, when Curtis started asking the same questions I did. Curtis kept copies of everything. He has been waiting for someone to use them." I sat with that for a moment. 2 men. Both thrown away by Preston Caldwell for getting too close to the truth. Both holding pieces of a puzzle that could destroy him. "Why now?" I asked. "Why contact me?" Terrence looked out at the lake. A pair of geese drifted past, unbothered by anything. "Because I watched my father destroy your son the same way he destroyed me. Different method. Same cruelty. He breaks people down until they believe they deserve it. Until they disappear." He turned back to me. "When I saw you visiting that building last week, when I learned who Magnolia Holdings was, I knew. You are the first person I have seen who actually has the power to stop him. What do you want out of this? Justice. Not money. Not the company. I want my father to face consequences for what he has done. To Curtis. To Nathan. To me. To everyone he has crushed and erased over the years." I studied his face for a long time, looking for deception, for angles, for the hidden play. All I saw was a man carrying 10 years of pain and 5 years of patience, waiting for this exact moment. I extended my hand. How fast can you be ready? I asked. Terrence did not hesitate. He shook my hand firmly. I have been ready for 5 years, Mr. Green. By 7 that evening, my kitchen table had become something else entirely. The breakfast dishes were long gone. In their place sat 4 laptops, a stack of folders 2 inches thick, 3 legal pads covered in notes, and enough empty coffee cups to stock a diner. 4 men around a table. Harold Green, retired electrician. Nathan Green, MBA with something to prove. Ray Whitfield, former financial crimes detective. Terrence Caldwell, the son who was thrown away. Diane would have made more coffee and told us to keep our voices down. I made the coffee myself and let the voices run. Ray arrived first at 6, carrying his laptop and a fresh folder of findings. He had spent the afternoon confirming everything Terrence told me at the park, cross-referencing the tax discrepancies with public records. Building a timeline. It is real, Ray said, setting his folder on the table. Everything Terrence has checks out. The shell companies, the underreported values, the payments to Curtis Monroe that stopped the day he was fired. It is a pattern, Harold. 10 years of systematic tax evasion. Terrence arrived at 6:30. Nathan met him at the door. I watched from the kitchen as they shook hands. 2 men who had never met, but who shared something they did not have to explain. They looked at each other and understood. You are Nathan, Terrence said. You are the brother Vanessa never told me about. Terrence nodded slowly. That sounds about right. They sat across from each other at the table. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Nathan broke the silence. How bad was it? When he pushed you out? Terrence met his eyes. He told me I was a disappointment, that I lacked the instinct for business, that I embarrassed him. Then he made sure everyone in Atlanta's business community heard the same story. I could not get a job anywhere in this city for 2 years. Nathan nodded. He told clients I was the help. Made me clean his car, carry his dry cleaning, hold doors, pour coffee. 8 days. Different methods. Terrence said quietly. Same man. I let them have that moment. Then I cleared my throat. Gentlemen, we have work to do. For the next 5 hours, we built a battle plan. Ray led the structure. His detective mind organized everything into prongs, assignments, timelines, clean and precise. Prong 1, Ray said, writing on the legal pad. The leases. Harold, your non-renewal notices are signed and sitting in Monica's office. We send them tomorrow morning. First thing, certified mail. Preston receives formal notification that Magnolia Holdings will not renew any of the 4 commercial leases upon expiration. That gives him 37 days to find new headquarters for his entire operation, Nathan added. With $14 million in debt and banks already threatening default, he cannot afford relocation costs. The company collapses under its own weight. Prong 2, Ray continued. The IRS. Terrence, your evidence of tax evasion goes to the Internal Revenue Service tomorrow. Curtis Monroe's records, the shell company documentation, the discrepancy analysis. We file a formal complaint. I have everything organized, Terrence said. Curtis reviewed it with me last month. It is ready to submit. Prong 3, I said. The Board of Directors. We request an emergency board meeting at Caldwell Properties. Present the financial reality that Preston has been hiding from them. His debt situation, the bank default notices, and the lease non-renewals. Force them to confront what their CEO has been concealing. Nathan leaned forward. They have a fiduciary duty to act on that information. If they know the company is insolvent and do nothing, they are personally liable. Exactly, Ray said. Which means once they see the numbers, they have no choice but to act. Prong 4, Terrence said. His voice was steady, but I could see the emotion underneath. I attend the board meeting. In person. I reveal who I am. Present the tax evidence directly. Let them see Preston's own son testifying against him. The table went quiet for a moment. We all understood what that meant for Terence. Walking into his father's boardroom after 5 years of exile, facing the man who erased him. "Are you sure?" I asked. Terence looked at me. "I have rehearsed this moment every day for 5 years. I am sure." "Prong 5, Ray said. "Media. I have a contact at the Atlanta Business Chronicle. Investigative reporter. Good reputation. I feed her the story, the morning of the board meeting. Not the full details. Just enough to ensure that whatever happens in that boardroom becomes public record. Preston cannot bury this quietly." Nathan was taking notes, cross-referencing with his corporate structure research. "When do we move?" "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," I confirmed. "Everything at once." Monica sends the non-renewal notices at 8. Terence files with the IRS at 9. I contact Gerald Hayes, the board chairman, and request an emergency meeting for 2 in the afternoon. Ray calls his reporter contact at noon. "All simultaneous," Ray said. "Preston cannot fight 5 fires at once. He will try to contain one, and the others will consume him." "What about Vanessa?" Nathan asked. His voice was controlled, but I heard the edge. "She will warn him the second she finds out I left." "She does not know anything," I said. "You left last night. She thinks you are hurt and hiding. She does not know about Magnolia Holdings, the leases, or any of this." Nathan nodded. "And Preston's surveillance? The sedan has not been back since yesterday," I said. Ray confirmed. "He pulled his resources when he sent the legal threat." Ray added. "Probably figured the warning letter was enough to scare off whoever was poking around. He thinks he won that round." "Good. Let him think that for 12 more hours." We spent another hour going over details. Who would say what at the board meeting? How to present the financial evidence. What legal protections we needed. Monica would attend as our counsel. Terence would enter after the initial presentation. Maximum dramatic impact. At 1 in the morning, we ordered pizza. 8 standing around the kitchen counter, papers spread everywhere, the energy in the room sharp and focused. 4 men with different reasons to want the same outcome. Nathan and Terence talked quietly by the sink. I overheard fragments. "He did the same thing to you that he did to me," Nathan said. "Just wrapped it in different paper. He breaks people," Terence replied. "It is what he does. But tomorrow we show him that broken pieces can come back sharper." By 2:30, the plan was locked. Every assignment clear. Every timeline confirmed. Ray left first, handshake at the door, eyes steady. 6 hours, Harold. Get some sleep. Terence followed. He paused on the porch. "Mr. Green, thank you for believing me. For not turning me away." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You came to us with courage, son. That is not something to thank people for. That is something to respect." He nodded once and disappeared into the night. Nathan and I stood in the kitchen. The table was still covered in plans and notes and empty cups. Evidence of a war council. "You should sleep," I said. He looked at the table, then at me. "We are really doing this tomorrow. We are really doing this tomorrow." He walked toward the stairs, stopped, turned back. "Dad, whatever happens tomorrow, whether it works or not, I need you to know something. The moment you showed me those folders, the moment I knew you had been fighting for me this whole time, that mattered more than anything Preston or Vanessa ever did to me." I looked at my son. "Get some sleep, Nathan. Tomorrow is going to be a long day." He went upstairs. I heard his door close. I stood alone in the kitchen. 3 in the morning. The house quiet around me. I walked to Diane's photo and stood there in the dark. "Tomorrow we finish this, sweetheart. Everything we built. Everything we saved. It all comes down to one day." I touched the frame with my fingertip. Then I turned off the light and went to bed. 4 hours until dawn. 10 hours until the boardroom. And Preston Caldwell still did not know what was coming. 6 in the morning. Day 10. I stood at my stove cooking eggs for 4 men who looked like they had been through a week-long siege instead of a single sleepless night. Same cast iron pan, same burner. But nothing about this morning was the same as 10 days ago. Nathan came down first. Showered, dressed in a clean suit he had kept in his old closet. Not the expensive one Vanessa bought him. An older one, navy blue, that he wore to his Emory graduation dinner. It fit different now. Sharper, like the man wearing it had been carved down to something essential. Ray arrived at 6:15. Fresh shirt, laptop bag over his shoulder. His eyes were tired but focused. The eyes of a man who had worked cases for 22 years and knew what game day felt like. Terrence came at 6:30. Dark suit, white shirt, no tie. He carried the folder with Curtis Monroe's evidence in a leather bag that he held close, like it contained something living. I set plates on the table. Eggs, toast, bacon, coffee. Nobody talked much. We ate with the quiet efficiency of people who knew what was coming and did not need to say it again. At 6:50, I cleared the plates, washed them in the sink, while the others gathered their things. Then I turned around and looked at the 3 men standing in my kitchen. Everyone clear on their assignments? 3 nods. Then let us move. Nathan and I would stay home until 1:30, then drive together to Caldwell Properties for the 2 o'clock board meeting. Ray, Terrence, and Monica each had their own timelines, their own targets. They left. Ray first, with a handshake and a look that said everything words could not. Terrence second, folder under his arm, jaw set. He paused at the door. "See you at 2, Mr. Green. See you at 2. Then the house was quiet. Nathan and I sat at the kitchen table with our coffee, watching the clock move. At 7:58, my phone buzzed. Monica. Notices sent. Certified mail. All 4 non-renewal letters dispatched to Caldwell Properties corporate office. Delivery confirmation expected within 2 hours. I texted back one word. Good. At 8:45, Terrence texted. On my way to the IRS field office in Chamblee. Curtis Monroe's documentation organized and ready. Filing the formal complaint by 9. At 9:12, he sent a follow-up. Filed. They accepted the complaint. Said the dollar amount triggers an automatic audit review. Preston Caldwell will receive notification within 30 days, but the investigation starts immediately. I showed Nathan the text. He read it and nodded. His face was calm, controlled, but I could see the pulse in his neck beating fast. At 11:30, Ray called. Spoke to my contact at the Atlanta Business Chronicle. Investigative reporter named Diane Watson. Sharp. Hungry for this kind of story. I gave her the outline. Prominent Atlanta developer facing financial collapse. Tax evasion allegations, hostile workplace complaints. She wants the full story after the board meeting. Said she will hold until we give her the green light. The board meeting. That was the centerpiece. Everything else was pressure. But the boardroom was where it all came together. At 11:45, I called Gerald Hayes, the chairman of Caldwell Properties Board of Directors. I had gotten his direct number from Monica, who knew someone who knew someone. Atlanta was like that. Everyone connected by invisible threads. He answered on the 3rd ring. Cautious. Formal. Mr. Hayes. My name is Harold Green. I represent Magnolia Holdings, the landlord for 4 of Caldwell Properties' primary locations. We need to speak urgently about a matter affecting the company's operations and your board's fiduciary responsibilities. A long pause. What kind of matter? The kind that requires an emergency board meeting this afternoon. I have documentation regarding the company's financial situation, its lease agreements, and additional allegations that the board will want to address before they become public. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear him thinking, weighing. Mr. Green. Are you aware that making threats against a publicly governed board carries legal consequences? I am not making threats, Mr. Hayes. I am doing you a courtesy. This information will become public regardless. I am offering you the opportunity to address it internally first. Silence. Then a slow exhale. 2 o'clock. Our boardroom, 15th floor. I will notify the other directors. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I hung up and looked at Nathan. We are in. 2 o'clock. He stood, straightened his jacket, checked his watch. 2 hours and 15 minutes. The next 2 hours moved like concrete drying. Slow. Heavy. Every minute waited with what was coming. Nathan reviewed his notes. I reviewed mine. We went over who would say what, when, how, the order of revelations, the timing of Terrence's entrance. At 12:30, Monica called. Preston received the non-renewal notices 20 minutes ago. His office called mine immediately. Demanded to speak to someone at Magnolia Holdings. My paralegal told them all inquiries must be submitted in writing. How did he sound? Monica paused. My paralegal said the man on the phone was screaming. Used the word lawsuit 14 times in 3 minutes. Good. Let him scream. At 12:45, Ray texted. Word from my sources inside Caldwell Properties. Preston is in full panic mode. Called an emergency meeting with his lawyers. Canceled all afternoon appointments. His assistant Kevin has been making calls non-stop for an hour, trying to find out who owns Magnolia Holdings. Let him search, I said to Nathan. The LLC structure has 4 layers. By the time he traces it back to me, we will be sitting in his boardroom. At 1:15, Nathan and I put on our jackets. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. 66 years old. Gray hair. Calloused hands. The face of a man who had spent 4 decades working with wire and wood and concrete. Not the face Preston Caldwell expected to see walking into his boardroom. I picked up my keys. Nathan stood beside me. Tall. Steady. Ready. Last time I walked into that building, I said. I walked out in silence. Nathan looked at me. Not today, I said. Not today, he agreed. We drove to Buckhead in my truck. The same old Ford that looked out of place in the parking garage 10 days ago. I pulled into the same visitor spot between luxury cars. Turned off the engine. The building rose above us. 15 stories of glass and steel. Caldwell Properties in gold letters above the entrance. Preston's name on the wall of a building he did not own. At 1:45, Monica's car pulled in beside us. She stepped out in a sharp black suit, briefcase in hand. Professional. Ready. At 1:50, Terrence arrived. Dark suit. Folder in his bag. Face composed, but I could see his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted his jacket. The 4 of us stood together in that parking garage, looking up at those glass doors. Ready? I asked. 3 voices. 3 answers. Ready. We walked toward the entrance. Together. Side by side. Into the building where my son had been humiliated. Into the building I owned. Into the room where Preston Caldwell was about to learn what happens when you break the wrong man's son. The lobby looked different when you walked in knowing you owned it. Same marble floors. Same modern art. Same reception desk with its brass fittings. But 10 days ago I had stood here as a stranger, watching my son be humiliated. Today I walked through those automatic doors with purpose in every step. Cynthia Walsh was at the desk. She looked up and I saw recognition flash in her eyes. The old man from last week. The one who had watched Nathan carry dry cleaning and said nothing. Her mouth opened slightly, but I was already past her, heading for the elevators. Nathan walked beside me. Monica behind us. Professional formation. 3 people with an appointment. The elevator doors closed. Soft music played. The same instrumental nonsense, designed to keep people calm. Nathan stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his breathing steady. 15th floor, I said. He nodded once. The doors opened onto thick carpet and floor-to-ceiling windows. The executive level. I had never been up here. Never had reason to. My relationship with this building existed on paper, in lease agreements and monthly wire transfers. But now I walk these halls knowing that every square foot of carpet beneath my shoes, every pane of glass in those windows, every beam holding this ceiling up, belonged to me. A young assistant met us outside the boardroom. Nervous. She checked Monica's name against a list, then Harold Green and Nathan Green. Cleared us without making eye contact. The boardroom door was open. The room was designed to intimidate. 20-foot ceilings. A mahogany table, long enough to seat 16. High-backed leather chairs. Windows running the full length of one wall, framing the Atlanta skyline like a painting. Buckhead. Midtown. The distant green of Piedmont Park, where I had sat with Terrence just yesterday. 5 people were already seated around the table. Gerald Hayes occupied the head. Board chairman. Mid-60s. Silver hair. Combed precisely. Reading glasses, hanging from a chain around his neck. He had the look of a man who had spent 40 years in corporate governance and preferred order above all things. Dorothy Mitchell sat to his left. Independent director. Late 60s. Sharp eyes that missed nothing. A legal pad already covered in notes before the meeting had begun. Robert Fung sat across from Dorothy. CFO. Early 50s. He had the exhausted face of someone who had been carrying bad numbers for too long and was tired of lying about them. 2 other directors filled out the middle of the table. Faces I would learn later. Men who watched, but rarely spoke. And at the far end, directly opposite Gerald Hayes, sat Preston Caldwell III. He looked like a man who had been running all morning. His suit was perfect. Tie straight. Hair slicked back as always. But his eyes were different. Red-rimmed. Darting. The confident calm I had seen 10 days ago, when he called my son a charity project, was gone. In its place sat something I recognized from 40 years on job sites. The look of a man who knows the structure is failing but cannot find the crack. Next to him sat a woman I had not expected. Vanessa. In a cream-colored blazer, hair perfect, posture rigid. Her hands were folded in her lap. She did not look at Nathan when we entered. She looked at her own fingers. We walked in. Monica first, then me, then Nathan. Preston's head snapped up. The sequence of expressions on his face was something I will remember for the rest of my life. First, confusion. Eyes narrowing, trying to place me. Then, recognition. The old man from the lobby. The one in flannel and work boots. Then his gaze moved to Nathan, and his face went through rage, contempt, and finally something close to fear. What is this? He stood so fast his chair rolled back and hit the window behind him. Gerald, what the hell is this? That is my son-in-law. And that, he pointed at me, that is nobody. A construction worker. An electrician. Gerald Hayes adjusted his glasses calmly. Mr. Caldwell, please sit down. Mr. Green represents Magnolia Holdings, the landlord for 4 of our primary operating locations. He has requested this meeting to discuss matters directly affecting this company's future. Magnolia Holdings? Preston's voice pitched higher. What does my landlord have to do with anything? Please. Sit. Down. Preston sat. But his hands were gripping the armrests of his chair like a man in a plane going down. Gerald turned to me. Mr. Green, the floor is yours. I stood at the head of the table opposite Preston. Took a moment. Let the silence build. Every eye in the room on me. An old man in a clean shirt and pressed slacks. Not a suit. Not a tie. Just me. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I appreciate the board hearing us on short notice. I opened the folder Monica had prepared. Set it on the table. My name is Harold Green. I am 66 years old. I am a retired electrician. I have lived in East Atlanta for 34 years. And for the past 24 years, I have operated a real estate holding company called Magnolia Holdings, LLC. I paused. Let it settle. Magnolia Holdings owns 47 properties across metropolitan Atlanta. Residential, commercial, mixed use. Among those 47 properties are 4 commercial buildings currently leased to Caldwell Properties. I listed them. 345 Peachtree Street, 1200 Piedmont Avenue, 728 West Paces Ferry Road, 91 14th Street. Preston's face drained of color with each address, like watching a man realize the ground beneath him was not solid. This morning, I continued, Magnolia Holdings sent formal non-renewal notices for all 4 leases. Upon expiration in 36 days, Caldwell Properties will be required to vacate all premises. The room erupted. Dorothy Mitchell set down her pen sharply. Robert Fung leaned forward, hands flat on the table. The 2 silent directors looked at each other with wide eyes. Preston stood again. This is extortion. This is blackmail. You cannot do this. Monica spoke for the first time. Her voice was ice. Mr. Caldwell, the lease agreements contain no automatic renewal clause. Renewal is at the sole discretion of the landlord. Mr. Green is exercising a contractual right. There is nothing illegal or coercive about this action. Gerald looked at Monica, then at me. Mr. Green, may I ask why you are choosing not to renew leases that have been active for over a decade? I looked directly at Preston Caldwell, held his gaze across that long mahogany table, because 10 days ago, I walked into this building to surprise my son on his first day working here, and I found him carrying your dry cleaning through this lobby while you told a client he was your daughter's little charity project. The room went silent. I built 47 properties over 35 years, I said. Every penny earned honestly. Every nail driven myself. And for 15 years, this man paid me $340,000 a month in rent without ever once asking who owned the walls around him. I let that number land. Saw the board members doing the math. Saw the realization settling over them. Preston's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I looked at him. 66 years old. Calloused hands. The face of a man he would never have noticed in a crowd. A man he called nobody. Mr. Caldwell, I said quietly. You spent 10 days treating my son like a servant in a building you do not own. Every floor you stand on, every wall that keeps the rain off your head, has belonged to me for 15 years. A retired electrician from East Atlanta. And your lease expires in 36 days. Preston Caldwell stared at me. His face was white. His hands trembled on the armrests. For the first time in his life, I think, he had absolutely nothing to say. Gerald Hayes cleared his throat into the silence. Mr. Green, is there anything else the board should be made aware of? I looked toward the boardroom door. Yes, I said. There is. One more thing the board needs to see. The boardroom door opened. Terrence Caldwell walked in with the deliberate calm of a man who had rehearsed this moment every single day for 5 years. Dark suit, white shirt, the folder in his hand. His eyes swept the room, taking in every face, every reaction, before landing on the one person he had come for. Preston. The color that had drained from Preston's face when I revealed Magnolia Holdings now disappeared entirely. What remained was not white. It was gray. The gray of a man watching a ghost walk toward him. Who? Preston started. His voice cracked. Who let him in here? Gerald. This man has no business. Terrence stopped at the edge of the table, directly across from his father. 10 feet of mahogany between them. 10 years of silence. My name is Terrence Caldwell, he said. His voice was steady, clear, projected to every corner of that room. Preston Caldwell is my father. Dorothy Mitchell's pen stopped moving. Robert Fung looked up from his financial reports. Gerald Hayes removed his glasses entirely and stared. Preston pushed back from the table. This is absurd. This man is not. He is not part of this company. He was terminated 5 years ago for cause. He has no standing here. Terrence did not flinch. Terminated for cause. He repeated the words, like they tasted bitter. You mean terminated because I found discrepancies in the company's tax filings and refused to stop asking questions? That is a lie. Gerald, I demand this man be removed. Gerald Hayes held up one hand. Mr. Caldwell, please. He looked at Terrence. Sir, you understand this is an emergency board meeting regarding lease agreements and company operations. If you have something relevant to present, do so quickly. Terrence nodded. He opened his folder and began placing documents on the table. One by one. Methodical. Precise. Each page positioned so the board members could read them clearly. For 10 years, Terrence said, Caldwell Properties has systematically underreported property values to Fulton County and the state of Georgia. 3 buildings. Assessed values falsified by a combined total of $4.2 million in unpaid taxes. He pointed to the first document. This is an internal valuation memo from 2018. It shows Building C, on Piedmont, assessed internally at $22 million. He placed a second document beside it. This is the tax filing submitted to Fulton County for the same year. Reported value, $14.6 million. A discrepancy of $7.4 million on a single property. Preston slammed his palm on the table. Those documents are fabricated. Stolen from company files by a disgruntled former employee. Curtis Monroe, Terrence said calmly. Your former head accountant. The one you fired 3 years ago when he raised the same concerns I did. Dorothy Mitchell was reading the documents. Her face had gone tight. These are formatted, like internal company memos, she said quietly. They carry Caldwell Properties letterhead and file reference numbers. Because they are real, Terrence said. Curtis kept copies of everything. Every falsified filing. Every internal valuation that contradicted what was submitted to the county. 10 years of records. They see. He placed more pages on the table. Bank statements showing transfers to shell companies. Internal audit reports that had been altered before submission to the board. A pattern so clear and so long-running that even the silent directors at the end of the table were leaning forward, reading with widening eyes. Robert Fung picked up one of the spreadsheets. His hands were shaking. I looked at it and saw the CFO doing math in his head, cross-referencing what he knew against what he was seeing for the first time. I never saw these numbers, Robert said. His voice was barely above a whisper. Preston, you told me the county assessments matched our internal valuations. You said. I said nothing that was not true. Preston's voice was loud now. Desperate. This is a conspiracy. Foster and this person, they are working together to destroy me. My name is Terrence, his son said. Your son. The one you told was not corporate enough. The one you erased from this family because I got too close to the truth. Preston looked around the room wildly. At Gerald, who was reading documents. At Dorothy, who was making notes with furious speed. At Robert, whose face had gone the color of ash. At the 2 silent directors who were no longer silent, whispering to each other. There is one more thing, Terrence said. He pulled the final page from his folder. This morning at 9 o'clock, I filed a formal tax evasion complaint with the Internal Revenue Service Field Office in Chamblee. Curtis Monroe's documentation was submitted in full. The IRS has accepted the complaint and opened an immediate investigation. The room went absolutely still. The kind of still that happens when everyone in a room simultaneously realizes that what they are witnessing cannot be undone, cannot be walked back, cannot be buried in a conference room and forgotten. Dorothy Mitchell set down her pen with a sharp click. This is criminal fraud, she said. Her voice carried across the table like a verdict. If these documents are authentic, and they certainly appear to be, This board has been presented with evidence of a decade of financial crimes committed by its own CEO. Preston turned to her. Dorothy, you have known me for 12 years. You cannot possibly believe. I believe documents, Preston, not people. And these documents tell a very disturbing story. Robert Fung stood slowly. His chair scraped back against the floor. His face was devastated. The CFO, who had trusted his CEO, was looking at the wreckage of that trust. Preston, he said. The banks. First National filed a notice of default 6 weeks ago. You told me it was a misunderstanding, that you were handling it. His voice rose. Were you handling it the way you handled the tax filings? By lying? Preston said nothing. Gerald Hayes put his glasses back on and looked around the table. I think we need to discuss this board's immediate response. The legal and fiduciary implications of what we have seen today are. He was interrupted by movement at the end of the table. Vanessa Caldwell stood up. Her chair pushed back sharply. Her face was composed, but her eyes were calculating, reading the room, doing the math of who was winning and who was losing. She picked up her purse and moved toward the door. Quick. Silent. The exit of someone who knew a sinking ship when she saw one. Nathan's voice cut through the room. Sit down, Vanessa. She froze. One hand on the back of a chair. Every eye in the room shifted to her. Then to Nathan. Then back to her. Nathan's voice was calm. Steady. Not loud. But it carried the weight of a man who had spent 8 days being silent and was done with silence. You are part of this, he said. You sat in this room knowing what your father did to me. Knowing it was a game. Knowing you were married to me as a joke. So sit down. You do not get to walk away from this. Vanessa's mask cracked. Just for a second. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe. Or the realization that the man she had dismissed as convenient and controllable was neither of those things anymore. She sat down. The room held its breath. Vanessa sat rigid in her chair. Hands folded. Eyes fixed on the table in front of her. The composure she wore like armor was cracking at the edges. Nathan remained standing. He did not raise his voice. Did not need to. For the board's understanding, he said, looking at Gerald Hayes. My marriage to Vanessa Caldwell was arranged by Preston as a means of control. Vanessa confirmed this herself 3 days ago. The purpose was to bring someone into the family who could be manipulated and degraded publicly to, in Preston's words, prove a point about who belongs at this table and who does not. Dorothy Mitchell stopped writing and looked at Vanessa. Is this true? Vanessa said nothing. Her silence was louder than any confession. Nathan continued. For 8 days, I was made to carry dry cleaning, park cars, serve coffee, clean conference tables, and hold doors. I was introduced to clients and partners as the help, as a charity project, all while being told by Vanessa that it was a testing period, that a real position was coming. He paused. No position was ever coming. It was designed to break me. Entertainment, for a man who enjoys humiliating people who cannot fight back. Preston erupted from his chair. Enough. This is character assassination. My personal family matters have nothing to do with this board. Gerald, end this meeting immediately. Gerald Hayes did not move, did not blink. Preston, he said quietly. Sit down. You cannot tell me to. Sit down. Something in Gerald's voice made Preston obey. He dropped into his chair like a man whose legs had given out. Gerald removed his glasses and set them on the table with careful precision. In the last 45 minutes, this board has been presented with evidence of the following. He held up one finger at a time. Catastrophic debt concealed from the board of directors. Imminent loss of all 4 primary operating locations due to lease non-renewal. A decade of systematic tax evasion currently under federal investigation. And conduct toward an employee that constitutes harassment and potentially constructive abuse of authority. He looked around the table. Each director met his gaze. Dorothy nodded firmly. Robert Fung nodded with the exhausted relief of a man finally allowed to tell the truth. The two silent directors nodded together. Gerald turned to Preston. Mr. Caldwell, this board moves for an immediate vote of no confidence in your leadership as CEO of Caldwell Properties. Preston's face contorted. You cannot. My father built this company. I have run it for 23 years. You do not have the authority to. We have exactly that authority, Dorothy said. Her voice was surgical. Article 7 of the corporate charter grants the board power to remove a CEO by majority vote when evidence of fiduciary breach, criminal conduct, or gross misconduct is presented. I count at least 3 of those criteria met today. Preston turned to Vanessa. His daughter. His ally. His last hope in the room. Vanessa did not look at him. She stared at her own hands, folded in her lap. Still and silent as stone. Gerald spoke. All in favor of removing Preston Caldwell III from the position of Chief Executive Officer of Caldwell Properties. Effective immediately. Please raise your hand. Dorothy's hand went up first. Sharp. Decisive. Robert Fung second. His hand trembling but certain. The two silent directors raised theirs together. Almost apologetic. Gerald raised his own last. The motion passes unanimously. Preston sat in his chair at the end of that long table, surrounded by people who had once followed his lead, attended his dinners, laughed at his jokes. Now they looked at him with something between pity and revulsion. This is not over, Preston said. His voice was smaller now. Tight. You will hear from my lawyers. All of you. I will fight this in every court in Georgia. Monica Sears stood. Speaking as legal counsel for Magnolia Holdings, she said calmly, I would advise Mr. Caldwell to consult with a criminal defense attorney rather than a corporate one. Given the IRS investigation currently underway, his immediate priorities should be personal legal protection rather than corporate litigation. Preston's mouth opened. Closed. He looked like a man trying to speak underwater. Gerald Hayes straightened his papers. There is one final matter. He turned to me. Mr. Green, given the circumstances, the board will need interim leadership to manage the transition. Do you have a recommendation? I looked at Nathan. My son stood at that table in his navy suit. Shoulders back. Chin level. Not the man who had carried dry cleaning through this lobby 10 days ago. Not the man who had been introduced as nobody. Not the broken voice on the phone every night begging for it to end. This was the Nathan I raised. My son, Nathan Green, I said. MBA from Emory University. Top of his class. Specialization in commercial real estate development strategy. He knows this company's operations from the inside. He has demonstrated more professionalism and integrity under pressure than anyone else in this room. I recommend him as Vice President of Operations, effective immediately. Gerald looked at Nathan. Mr. Green, are you willing to accept this responsibility? Nathan looked at Preston, held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then turned to Gerald. Yes, sir. I am. Gerald nodded. The board will formalize the appointment by end of week. In the meantime, Mr. Caldwell, he addressed Preston, please vacate your office by 5 o'clock today. Security will escort you. Preston stood. Slowly this time. Like a man made of something breakable. He looked around the room one final time. At the board that had abandoned him. At his son Terrence, who had exposed him. At Nathan, who had replaced him. At me. The electrician. The nobody. The man who owned his world. He said nothing. Picked up his jacket from the back of his chair. Walked to the door. Vanessa stood and followed him without a word. Neither of them looked back. The door closed behind them. The boardroom exhaled. Gerald Hayes extended his hand across the table to me. Mr. Green, this has been an extraordinary afternoon. I shook his hand. Thank you for listening, Mr. Hayes. Nathan shook hands with each board member in turn. Professional. measured. Dorothy Mitchell held his hand an extra second and said something quiet that made him nod. Terrence stood near the window, looking out at the skyline. His face was still. Not triumphant. Not sad. Something in between. The look of a man who had finally set down something he had been carrying for a very long time. I walked over to him, put my hand on his shoulder. "You did good, son." He looked at me. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "Thank you, Mr. Green, for giving me the chance." We walked out of the boardroom together. Nathan, Terrence, Monica, and me. Down the thick-carpeted hallway, into the elevator, through the marble lobby. Nathan stopped just inside the automatic doors. Stood there for a moment, looking at the spot where he had carried dry cleaning 10 days ago, where Preston had called him a charity project, where he had felt his face burn with shame. He looked at that spot. Then at me. "It is over, Dad." I put my arm around his shoulders, pulled him close for 1 second. "No, son. It is just beginning." We walked out through those glass doors together. Into the April afternoon. Into the rest of our lives. 6 months later, I was back in my kitchen. Same stove. Same cast iron pan. Same morning light, slanting through the window above the sink. The magnolia tree outside had gone from spring blooms to full summer green, and now was beginning to turn with the first hints of October gold. Some things had not changed. I still woke before dawn. Still made coffee. In the same pot Diane picked out at a department store 25 years ago. Still stood at that stove cracking eggs into cast iron, while the world outside was quiet and still. But everything else was different. The doorbell rang at 8:15. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked to the front door. Nathan stood on the porch in a casual button-down, relaxed, smiling, and beside him stood a woman I had met twice before for dinner but never for Sunday breakfast. Emma Lawson was 29 years old, a nurse at Grady Memorial Hospital. She had kind eyes and an easy smile, and the sort of warmth that did not need to announce itself. The first time Nathan brought her to the house, she had complimented Diane's magnolia tree without knowing why it mattered. That told me everything I needed to know about her. "Morning, Dad." Nathan hugged me. One arm, firm, the way he did now. No hesitation. No weight behind it. "Morning, Mr. Green." Emma extended her hand, but I waved it away and hugged her too. "It is Harold. And you are always welcome here. Come in. Breakfast is almost ready." They settled at the kitchen table. Nathan poured coffee for both of them without asking how Emma took hers. He already knew. Small thing. But I noticed. The way a man pays attention to someone he cares about. I set plates on the table. Eggs, turkey bacon, toast, Sunday breakfast. Diane's tradition that had survived everything. The years without her. The dark week when Nathan was trapped at Caldwell Properties. The sleepless nights of planning. All of it. This kitchen had held grief and fury and fear. Now it held something else. Peace. The real kind. The kind you earn. Emma asked about the building project on Memorial Drive. Nathan had mentioned it to her, the affordable housing development that Green Properties, our new company, was finishing this month. 32 units for families who needed them. "We are doing the walkthrough next week," Nathan said. "Ribbon cutting in November. You should come." "I would love that," Emma said. "Some of my patients at Grady could really use affordable housing in that area." Nathan looked at me. "We are prioritizing applications from families referred by healthcare workers, community organizations, and schools. No investors, no flippers. People who actually need homes." I nodded. That was Nathan's idea. The whole direction of the company had been his vision. When the board appointed him VP of Operations 6 months ago, he could have simply maintained what existed, kept the status quo, collected rent, and made safe decisions. Instead, he rebuilt everything. Caldwell Properties no longer existed. Nathan dissolved it within 60 days of taking over. In its place stood Green Properties. Same buildings, same staff, completely different philosophy. Fair wages, transparent management, community-focused development. Every decision filtered through a simple question Nathan had written on a whiteboard in his office. Would this make someone feel like a charity project? If the answer was yes, they did not do it. All 200 employees kept their jobs. Most got raises. The toxic managers Preston had cultivated were gone within the first month. Kevin, Preston's former assistant, was the first to be let go. The company was profitable again. Not wildly, not extravagantly, but steadily. The debt had been restructured with the banks, who were more than happy to work with new leadership that actually communicated honestly. 2 of the 4 Magnolia Holdings buildings had their leases renewed under new terms. The other 2, Nathan had decided to purchase outright, rolling the equity back into the company. My son was a good businessman. But more than that, he was a good man. And it turned out, those 2 things were not mutually exclusive, the way Preston Caldwell had always implied. After breakfast, Emma and Nathan offered to wash dishes. I let them. Stood in the living room doorway watching them at the sink, bumping shoulders, laughing about something quiet between them. Nathan dried a plate and set it in the rack with the easy motion of someone comfortable in his own skin. I thought about Preston Caldwell. Not with anger anymore. Just factually. The way you think about a storm that has passed. The IRS investigation had led to a formal indictment 3 months ago. Tax evasion, wire fraud, falsification of financial documents. Preston was out on bail, awaiting trial. His assets were frozen. The mansion in Tuxedo Park was on the market. The cars were gone. The country club membership revoked. Vanessa had filed for divorce from Nathan within 2 weeks of the boardroom meeting. The prenuptial agreement, which Preston's own lawyers had drafted to protect Caldwell assets, ironically protected Nathan as well. Vanessa received a modest settlement and nothing more. Last I heard, she had moved to Charleston. Trying to start over somewhere, the Caldwell name did not carry the stench it now carried in Atlanta. Terrence Caldwell had surprised everyone. After the boardroom, I expected him to disappear back into his quiet life in Virginia Highland. Instead, he asked Nathan for a meeting. 2 brothers who had never known each other properly, connected by the shared experience of being broken by the same man. Nathan offered him a consulting role at Green Properties. Terrence accepted. They had lunch together every Thursday now. Nathan told me they were becoming friends. Real friends. The kind built on mutual respect, rather than shared blood. Ray Whitfield still came over for Sunday football. Still drank the same beer. Still told the same bad jokes. Some things were sacred. Curtis Monroe, the accountant Preston had fired, was hired by Green Properties as head of finance. Nathan said he was the most honest numbers man he had ever met. Sometimes being fired by a terrible person is the best reference you can get. Nathan and Emma left around 11. He was driving her to her shift at Grady. At the door, he turned back. Thanks for breakfast, Dad. Same time next week? Same time every week, I said. He smiled. The real smile. The one that had disappeared for those terrible 8 days and had come back stronger. Then he took Emma's hand and they walked to his car. Still, the Honda Accord. Still practical. Still his. I stood on the porch and watched them drive away. October morning, cool enough for a light jacket. The magnolia tree dropping its first leaves on the sidewalk. Neighbors walking dogs. Kids riding bikes down Flat Shoals Avenue. Normal life. Beautiful. In its normalcy. I went back inside and poured one more cup of coffee. Carried it to the kitchen table and sat in the quiet. My eyes found Diane's photo on the shelf above the window. Same cream-colored frame. Same smile. Same feeling every time I looked at her. We did it, sweetheart, I said softly. We got him back. The kitchen was quiet after they left. Just me, and the coffee, and the morning sun moving slowly across the floor. The same floor Diane used to dance on when she thought nobody was watching. The same floor Nathan learned to walk on, hands reaching for the edge of this table, laughing when he finally let go and took 3 steps alone. I carried my cup to the shelf above the window. Stood there looking at her photo. 31 years of marriage. 15 years since she left. And I still talk to her every morning like she was just in the other room. "We raised a good man, Diane," I said. "He is going to be all right now. Better than all right. He is going to be everything we hoped for." I touched the frame the way I always did. Thumb across the edge. The wood worn smooth from years of the same gesture. Then I sat back down at the table with my coffee and let the quiet settle around me. People ask me sometimes, the few who know the full story, whether I regret what I did, whether I would do it differently, whether I think it was worth the risk. 47 properties on the line, decades of careful building, my entire financial future staked against one man's cruelty. The answer is always the same. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would do it again with less. I would do it again with nothing but these calloused hands and the certainty that my son deserved better than what Preston Caldwell had planned for him. But I want to be honest with you about something. This story is not really about revenge. I know that is what it looks like. A father destroying the man who humiliated his son. A quiet landlord pulling the rug out from under a powerful executive. David and Goliath with a real estate twist. But that is not what it was. Not to me. It was about dignity, about the simple idea that every human being, regardless of where they come from, what school they attended, what neighborhood they grew up in, deserves to walk through a door and be treated as someone who matters. Preston Caldwell believed the world was divided into people who serve and people who are served, people who belong and people who are tolerated. He spent his life reinforcing that division, crushing anyone who threatened it, erasing anyone who did not fit his definition of worthy. He did it to Terrence. His own blood, his firstborn son, threw him away because Terrence dared to ask uncomfortable questions. He did it to Curtis Monroe, a good man, an honest accountant, fired for doing his job correctly. He did it to my Nathan. 8 days of systematic degradation, designed to teach my son that he was less, that he would always be less, that the best he could hope for was to be useful. But here is what men like Preston never understand. Dignity is not something they can take. It is something we surrender. And it can always, always be reclaimed. I did not reclaim Nathan's dignity with violence. I did not walk into that office on day 1 and put my fist through Preston's face. Though God knows every bone in my body wanted to. I did not threaten, did not scream, did not make a scene. I waited. I planned. I used the tools I had spent a lifetime building, and when the time was right, I moved with precision and patience, and the quiet certainty of a man who knows that truth, once revealed, cannot be unrevealed. God gave me the patience for this. I believe that with my whole heart. There were nights during those 10 days when I sat at this table in the dark, listening to my son's broken voice on the phone, and I prayed. Not for revenge, for strength, for the wisdom to wait, when every instinct screamed to act, for the faith to believe that justice would come if I trusted the process. And God was faithful. Not in the dramatic way, not with thunder and lightning, but in the quiet way, in the phone call from Terrence that came at exactly the right moment, in the evidence that fell into place piece by piece, in the strength my son found to stand up after being pushed down for 8 straight days. I am not a hero. I want to be clear about that. I am just a father. A 66-year-old retired electrician who loved his son enough to risk everything he had built, who loved his late wife enough to keep the promise he made to her photo every single morning. Protect our boy, Harold. No matter what. That is what this was. Not revenge. Protection. Restoration. Justice through patience and preparation, not through becoming the kind of man Preston Caldwell was. And I want to say one more thing. To anyone listening who might be going through something similar. Maybe you are trapped in a situation where someone with power is grinding you down, making you feel small, making you believe you deserve less than you do. Maybe it is a boss, a family member, a spouse, someone who has convinced you that their cruelty is your fault. It is not. It never was. You do not have to accept it. You do not have to stay silent. There is always a path forward. How algo, patience. Even when you cannot see it yet. It might take patience. It might take time. It might cost you something precious. But your dignity is worth more than any price they try to put on your silence. Stand up. Speak truth. Trust that the walls people build around their cruelty are never as strong as they appear. And remember this. The same God who gave me 40 years of patience and 47 doors gave you whatever you need for your fight. You just have to trust it. Use it. And never, ever let someone else decide what you are worth. If this story touched you today, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell me what it meant to you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the stories that come next. Every week, I bring you real stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things when pushed to their limits. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for walking through these 10 days beside me, for believing in a father's love and a quiet man's plan. One final note. The stories on this channel contain fictionalized elements created for narrative and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual names, places, or events is purely coincidental. If this type of content is not for you, no hard feelings. But if you believe in justice, in family, in the power of standing up for what is right, then you are in the right place. Until next time, remember this. Dignity is not given. It is claimed.